While Sitting in a Fairy Glen is a storyteller's theater piece that was inspired with me actually sitting in a fairy glen in the Isle of Skye in Scotland with my mom and dad's ashes. Thus, the first story. My stories were created for people that I've been doing emotional healing work with, but they've also been battling with their own illnesses and syndromes. The first story, Amy and the Zymox, was started actually in the Glen and created about the magic of my little Scottish girl fighting leukemia. Trevor's Fire is about a free-spirited boy, a phoenix child, labeled with ADHD. Linda Lovely Goes to Broadway is for my elfin woman with Down syndrome, now suffering from Alzheimer's. Her dream is to be Laurie in Oklahoma. The Grail Knight named Christopher is for my knight, a piano technician dealing with HIV. All these stories were created for these people and given as gifts, and then they gifted them back to me so that I could perform them in your living room. I thought that the first story that I wrote was for the little Scottish girl, but actually it was for her mother. Thus, these are fairy tales for the caregivers and all of us. The stories are meant to be enchanting, otherworldly, and messages from the heart. 4 storytelling events start with the setup story, and then there'll be songs and musings that will set the mood for the main story that you'll hear later. The Fairy Queen of Wisdom lives within the sunroom of a tree, and there she sees the wide, wide world, but no fool can her beauty see. You ready?
Ready.
And
Scotland's burning, look out, look out. Fire, 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 look out, Scotland's burning. Fire, 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 pour on water, pour on water, pour on water, pour on water.
And the mist is low, and stars are shining through. Then out of my dreams I'll go into a dream with you. Hey, that's good. We're going to go on the road together. Pack your suitcases. The misty morning that peculiar Saturday in Dundee. It's quite often a misty morning, but this particular Saturday was a peculiar one. Amy often sat by the window of her mystical bedroom, filled with fairy tales and fairy lores and fairy pictures on the walls, fairy books on the shelves and on the floor, fairy wings and fairy costumes in the wardrobe. Amy often sat staring out upon the mist in her fairy mind, dreaming of a world that was magical, musical, and free, of a time long forgotten, of a world where everything one thought of would happen in the love of being, where the air was crisp and pungent with after the rain and honeysuckle, and the water was crystal fresh, where there was music in the voices of people as they spoke, and where you stepped, stars danced. Amy's world is a world of endless possibilities. Amy's world is filled with the messages of the heart. Amy's world is a healed earth, green and lush and clear of poisons. And although Amy does not feel good in her body, as she often does these days, she feels a glow in her heart as she stares out in this most peculiar of mornings into this most peculiar of mists. I hate when I have to get up when I want to sleep. Nobody understands anything. I don't want to sleep at night. No, get out. I can trust myself. I know what time it is. I can read the clock. I hate the clock. Somebody shoot the clock. T for two, and T for two. You for me, and me for you. Can you see how happy we elfin woman, and after a few steps with toe touches and careful turn, she took one of her hands off the soft, blue-laced parasol, shook it in the face of the red-headed elfin man with thick glasses she'd been dancing this enchanting soft shoe with, and said, "No, no, no, no," to his carefully planned advances. The audience, filling this petite little theater, fell into their own elfin behavior and laughed at the precise timing of the comedy of her delivery. The little lady held for the laugh to grow as if she obeyed many years of training. But if truth be told, she held for the awe of the loving response to something she so very much loved and engaged herself in. She did not possess the discipline of the thespians that walked the earth before her, donning masks and long robes and high-heeled cothornoi. Shakespeare had not been in her many years of schooling. Neither was she schooled in the art of improvisation, in the Second City Improv, or well-trained in Ethel Merman's gestures and stamina. Little Linda Lovely, as her stage name became, simply followed the instincts of the many musical theater divas that grace the grand theater before her, pure and total instinct. Bum, 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 bum. Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. When Christopher lays his gentle hands upon the keys of the piano, be it an upright or baby grand, a Steinway or a Yamaha, a piano in an old woman's parlor or a grand piano at the Met, his deep-felt love and passion are ignited every time his fingers caress the keys, the spruce covered in an imitation of ebony and ivory. And as his passions exudes through the keyboard and excites the felts to hold tight to the hammers they caress, they arouse the hammers to strike the strings, and the hammers recoil from this bold action. They enjoy the ecstasy emanating from their beloved strings while they vibrate, singing, resonating through an uncrossable bridge to an anticipating sounding board that couples this enamorous acoustic energy to the waiting air so that Christopher could hear it, and when Christopher releases the keys, the dampers would stop the quivering strings with such adoration that the strings and hammers and keys can barely contain themselves with the anticipation of Christopher's lovemaking. Christopher plays with the keys and dreams of a solo concert at Carnegie Hall, white-tied and tailed and profoundly focused on his grand piano.
I was mesmerized. I would probably have not left childhood if I'd ever heard one of those when I was a child. Or maybe I haven't. It's hard to tell somehow.
I love her storytelling. She's really an incredible storyteller. Got a beautiful voice when she sings, and I love her facial expressions. Really brings it to life.
I feel like a kid, is what I feel like. Someone's telling me a story, and it's kind of like a bedtime story, and that's really a special feeling. And I like that environment, that house environment for that reason.
My mother would love you. You're loud and you enunciate.
The fairy queen of wisdom lived within the sunroom of a tree. From there she saw the wide, wide world, but no fool could her beauty see. She called a wind